Everybody's asking the wrong question. They ask, how high will gold go? That's not the question policymakers care about. The real question is much colder, much more bureaucratic. What price would gold have to be to make the system work again? Because gold-backed monetary system is not about upside, it's about credibility. Gold is what central banks buy when governments no longer trust each other, and credibility has a price. So let's start with something nobody disputes. Central banks are buying gold, not a little and not symbolically. They're buying it at the fastest pace since Bretton Woods collapsed. China, Russia, Turkey, India, and so many more. Even countries that publicly dismiss gold keep adding it to their reserves. And here's the key point. Central banks don't buy assets for returns. They buy assets for systemic reasons. They buy what they think they'll need after the next transition. So the question becomes, what transition are these central banks preparing for? A gold-backed system doesn't mean gold coins in your pocket. It means gold is a reference point again, a credibility anchor. And when systems lose credibility, they don't tweak policy, they redefine units. History shows us this. That's what happened in 1933. Gold didn't rally. The dollar was just redefined downward. Gold stayed gold. The unit measuring it changed. That distinction matters. So let's talk math and not hype. If tomorrow policymakers wanted a credible gold-backed global system, gold would need to absorb decades of monetary expansion, not speculation, not leverage, balance sheets. There are only 3 ways to calculate this, and all of them lead to numbers that sound uncomfortable. Gold right now is trading around $5,000 an ounce. And so let's be very clear at the start. This is not a breakout story. This is not a momentum story. And it's not a retail thesis. It's a solvency exercise. Because even at $5,000, gold does not come close to supporting a credible global monetary system if one were required. And that's the uncomfortable part. Central banks aren't buying for price. They are buying for necessity. Central banks are accumulating gold at the fastest pace in modern history, not through derivatives and not through ETFs, but through physical acquisition, the real stuff. Why? Because gold is the only monetary asset that has no counterparty risk, is not somebody else's liability, and survives currency redefinitions intact. Central banks don't buy gold because it's going up. They buy gold because they know what breaks first. Start with the inventories, the hard constraint. Let's look at this in numbers. U.S. official gold reserves are 261 million ounces. That's 8,133 metric tons approximately. Global central bank gold is about 1.1 billion ounces, or about 35,000 metric tons. The above ground gold in all forms total is about 6.5 to 7 billion ounces. Gold is not scalable, and most of it is not even monetizable. It's cultural gold, there are private reserves, it's geopolitically stockpiled inaccessible. And so in a crisis, only official gold matters. Now compare that to currency claims. This is where the discussion usually ends because the numbers get awkward. U.S. broad money, known as M2, is somewhere between $21 and $22 trillion, and global broad money is somewhere between $105 and $110 trillion. That's not derivatives, that's not leverage, that's plain currency and deposit claims. Now, ask the only question policymakers care about. How much gold would it take to restore confidence, not perfection, in the system? People like to assume a 20% backing because it sounds reasonable, because it sounds historic. But here's the problem. A 20% gold-backed system only works when debt is low, trust is high, and capital is not mobile at light speed. None of those conditions exist today. So a 20% backing ratio in a hyper-financialized world does not restore confidence. It invites attack. Which means any serious reset must over-anchor, not under-anchor. This is where the math stops being polite. So let's look at a global reset math using only official gold. Let's assume a global monetary reset that requires credible backing, not symbolic backing. Start with global broad money, 105 trillion. Assume a 40 to 50% gold reference, not convertibility, but credibility. That implies somewhere between 42 and 52 trillion dollars in gold value required. Now divide that by the official central bank only gold of about 1.1 billion ounces. You don't get 10,000 gold. You don't get 20,000 an ounce gold. You get somewhere between 38,000 and 47,000 per ounce gold. And that's not upside. That's not optimism. That's the price required just to prevent instant loss of confidence. And that doesn't even count how governments will always spend into the future. That's just today's dollars. So now isolate the dollar, where the pressure concentrates. If the dollar were required to remain credible inside a new system, even partially gold referenced, the math becomes harsher. USM2 is about 21 trillion, 40% credibility anchor is about 8.4 trillion. Divide that by the official US gold of 261 million ounces, and that implies a starting point of $32,000 per ounce before accounting for foreign-held dollar claims, offshore dollar liabilities, or reserve currency obligations. Include those, and the number is decisively north of $45,000 per ounce. This is why a $50,000 per ounce gold price is not extreme, it's conservative. At $50,000 per ounce, gold does not mean hyperinflation, gold coins replacing dollars, or societal collapse. It means the unit measuring value has been resized to match reality. Gold doesn't explode, currencies shrink. That's what 1934 was. That's what Bretton Woods was. That's what every reset has ever been. Here's the key insight most people miss. Gold cannot be allowed to float freely in a reset. It must be repriced sharply, stabilized, and then capped again. Because the floating gold price would expose ongoing debasement, so policymakers choose a number that absorbs past excesses, restores confidence, and closes the chapter. That number feels uncomfortably high. $50,000 per ounce gold might match that expectation. At $5,000 gold, central banks are under underhedged. They're buying now because once repricing occurs, access closes, revaluations are one-time events, and accumulation after the fact is difficult, if not impossible. They're not guessing, they're positioning for arithmetic. Gold at $5,000 proves the system is stressed. Gold at $15,000 would signal reform. Gold at $50,000 would mean the system has been redefined. Not to reward gold holders, but to make the math work again. The question is not whether $50,000 gold per ounce is possible. The question is whether policymakers can restore trust without it. And the balance sheet suggests that they cannot. Come back for part 2 tomorrow, where we discuss what this would mean for silver pricing. In the meantime, take care of yourself and each other, and as always, build that stack!